Before I begin, I want to say that recently I've been pursuing independent learning and development using LinkedIn Learning. So far, my posts have consisted about what I've learned using machine learning and cryptocurrency, and I recommend taking these two courses that I've already taken about TensorFlow and crypto. Most recently, however, I followed along a Google Apps script for JavaScript developers course taught by Jesse Freeman. The LinkedIn Learning course gives a great overview over how to use the most common methods of Google's library. For example, it teaches you how to find files through Google Drive in code, open them, parse them into a readable format, create additional files from pre-existing raw data, and more. The course also goes into depth about folder usage, deletion, markdown conversion, and more. And so from this idea, I kind of got to the point where I was using Google Drive and I'm thinking, well, what if I have a document, let's just say it is a to-do list. So if I create a to-do list here or a shopping list or something, and I'm gonna have it numbered, I'm gonna say today I need to buy a book, do groceries, and then etc., etc. So once this saves to my folder here, well, Google gives you the option to make a copy, and it takes a little time, and now I only have one copy. But what if I want to do this for every day of the week? Well, that's where I came up with the idea of using what I learned from this LinkedIn course to create a Google Apps script with a form that would let me take any Google Doc that I make on my Google Drive and duplicate it however many times I want to do that. So to get started, just like he explains in the LinkedIn Learning course, you need to have Google Apps Script enabled. So if you don't already, you would find that by clicking the Add button on your Google Drive, and you can type in script and it should pop up. So I already have it installed, but you would click this and click install if you don't already have it. Now to get started with that, I'm going to delete the copy because we're going to make it with code. So more, and here we are, Google Apps Script. Now on my website, I have it already posted. So all we have to do is copy my code and paste it into Google Apps Script format. So this is the Google script file, which is the main file. The index is for the form that I've created to go along with it. So I will explain this in a little bit as well. We can get rid of the main function because I replaced it with this reading the form function. This part at the top is required from what I've looked at for any HTML form that you use, because it does have a post request, and AppScript doesn't know how to handle that if it doesn't have this. You will get an error message that says could not find the doGet function. So that's important to have. And then here is the index file. It actually stops here. I will have to update that in a second. And so all we have to do is click Add HTML, call it index, because that's what I've called it. Theoretically, you can call it whatever you want, but I've already put it into the Google script to read it as index.html. So basically what the HTML is doing is just, here's the styling, formatting of the text. This is a JavaScript function to say when I've completed the form to pop up that if your valid is correct, that it will be located in your drive. There is this one line that I researched using Stack Overflow, which explained that instead of making it go to a blank page by default, you can put events.prevent default, and that will allow it to stay on the same page and continue your code. So that's that. And we'll see this later when I deploy. These are just like the text for the form. Here's where you would type in the file link, and here's where you would type in the number of times you want to duplicate it. And so here is the Google script code that I created. This is the main one, as I was saying earlier. What we do is we pull that file URL from that form, as well as the number of times right here that we want to duplicate. And what this does is it goes through that URL and it takes the fifth part or sixth part of that URL after the so it looks for 6 slashes, and it takes that portion after, which would be an ID. So for example, if I go here and I click get link, copy link, this is what we'll have to do to get this file duplicated. So for example, if I comment it out and paste it, you can see that there's 2 slashes here, 3, 4, 5. So it's taking this 6th portion right here, and that is our ID for this file. And so this form function will be called whenever someone clicks the submit button on the actual form. So here it is. It's being called google.script.run form function this. And so the great thing about Google Apps Script that I've learned from the LinkedIn course is that it will, it's back end, so like it can work with JavaScript, which is front end. And if you have multiple Google Script files, the functions are global, so that you can call the different functions of a different file in this file, or vice versa. And essentially the rest of it is, so once it gets that URL, it gets the ID, and then it finds that file by the ID using the Drive app functionality, and then it just has to go in for the number of times that we entered in the duplicate in the for loop, and it will make a copy into that same directory. So for example, I'm going to deploy it now, so all I have to do for that is I'm going to deploy it now, and all I have to do for that is go up here to deploy, new deployment, and select type. It's going to be a web app, and I'm going to call it, so that's me. For reasons of privacy of files, I'm going to keep it only to myself, but if you go and copy this code onto your own Google Apps Script file, you will be able to do the same thing with your own Google Drive. So all I have to do is click deploy. It'll take a second. It might ask for permissions if you haven't done these before. What I also like to do is to create a main script, which is just blank, to have it load my code and ask me the permissions. So for example, like I would go up here, type in function, and you can title it whatever you want. Main is pretty simple and understandable, and so that's an empty function right there. So I will go up to save, main, run, and here we go. It starts asking for authorization, so I will sign in, allow, and there we go. So it ran. So now I should deploy it again just to make sure, and I will call it duplicate form, and I'll put a 2 just in case, and same settings, deploy. And so now it gives me this web app URL right here, so I can open it in a new tab, and this is what I've created. So now all I have to do is type in the link, which I've already copied to my clipboard. To get the link, you just go to your file that you want to copy, right-click, get link, and then it'll bring you to this, and you just click copy. You don't have to change any of the sharing restrictions if you are logged into your own account. And so let's say I want to copy this 4 times. So I click duplicate, and there it goes. It's already told me it's completing as we speak. And so if I go back to the Google Drive now, you will start seeing it populate with the different copies. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching. You can check more out about this project at itscode.com. Thanks.